Hello, everybody. My name is Adrian-John, and thank you very much for joining the Adrian-John podcast. Today, we have a special guest today, Kenny Granville. But before we go ahead and get into it, I do want to go ahead and do a moment of silence for the 20-year anniversary pass of the September 11th attack. So join me, please, in a moment of silence. All right, thank you for joining us again. The gentleman that we are bringing up today, he is an influencer, a life coach, and he has nothing but a great message to share. Knowing our story is hard to think about. Telling your story can be terrifying. The thought of sharing it is unthinkable. Whether working with a group or one on one, Kenny's approach is always the same. Help them learn about themselves, build their confidence to speak it, then empower them to share and influence others. Man, that sounds amazing. I can only imagine what he can do. But before we introduce him and get him on, let's go ahead and roll to our intro. Hey, what's up, Kenny?
What it do,
Mr.
Adrian, man? What it
Granville.
do?
How's everything?
Man, everything is everything, brother.
Awesome. I'm so glad to have you on the podcast here. Um, we've worked together before, and I've seen some of the work that you've done, especially helping with children who may not necessarily have English as their first language, and to see the results that you help them to teach them, and they're able to they speak way better than anybody who has it English as like a first language. Like I was super blown away. So I'm super happy to have you on because I believe you're a big inspiration, and I think everybody needs to know a little bit about what you do. Um, to see if they can benefit from that or just even get some inspiration.
Oh yeah, man, for sure. Like that's what it's all about. And you know, the classes I had you sit in on. First of all, man, I appreciate you doing that. I always want to get the community involved in working with a lot of the classes that I do, but a lot of it is just finding your voice. You know, the program that I run is finding your voice for the youth program, and typically it expands a lot more than just youth who English isn't their first language. I just happen to be in a community that has a lot of diversity, a lot of first generation Americans, a lot of youth that are crossing that border to that better opportunity, and they struggle, and a lot of their struggle comes from they're not having an opportunity to be supported by their family. Their family is not able to provide them that insight, that perspective on how to do things differently, but a lot of times it's just giving them direction. I do little to nothing other than guide these youth, these young adults, these children, these teenagers. They all have a story on their own. They all have the potential to do it, and I just believe in them. And the one thing I always tell them is, I see your potential, and until you see it, I'm going to be the mirror that's going to reflect it for you. And the results are always amazing. There has never been a time that I haven't been just teary eyed at hearing some of these stories. Sometimes they have me straight up bawling, but it's the opportunities that they look for and then what they can do after that. So, yeah, man, it's always a blessing to be a part of our youth, our leaders of tomorrow, and helping them find their voice and their platform.
That is awesome. That is awesome. yeah, the some of the stories I heard, and to see the progress was just mind blowing.
It's
I was
amazing, right?
it is, and very inspiring. Like, I still think of a couple of the stories that they told, and it helps motivate me still. Like,
There's one thing that I like to keep in my arsenal that I always present to them, and that's comfortable vulnerability. All right. A lot of times they think they have to, especially the ones that I have been had the pleasure of interacting with, are at-risk youths who don't have a lot of support from family, who don't have a family, who is in the foster care system, or they're out of the system, and they don't. Once you turn 18 and you're out, that's it. They're a lot of times they're left on their own to their own device, and they don't know where to go, and that's where they feel the most lost. So a lot of times it was talking about that story. First of all, before you can move on, you have to acknowledge what you're going through. And that takes a level of vulnerability that people think they're not allowed to have. And when you tell them, not only do we want you to be comfortable, but we want you to be vulnerable, and comfortable vulnerability will help you guide there. You break down that wall, you get around what they've been having their entire life to protect themselves. Once you get past that, there is so much potential to be explored. And the fact that they were so willing to do that was first and foremost the biggest reward for me as the person guiding them. And then when they told their story, the results that everybody gave them, the accolades that the evaluators and the audience responded to, gave them that same result as well. And if they didn't know that they were able to do it, they sure as hell knew it by the time they were done. And you know what I'm saying? Like the progression that they had. So the classes typically are 12 sessions in 1 month, and we try to do it 3 times a week, because the more you're engaged, the more that you're going to be able to keep them motivated. And a lot of times, like this was during COVID. So let me backtrack a little bit if you don't mind, brother.
no
And I'll
problem.
tell you
Yeah,
how this
definitely.
came about, man. So it was COVID, and I was in the middle of my leadership as district director for Toastmasters. And, you know, I had just put out a commercial that promoted Toastmasters, trying to get membership up, trying to get people more educated on what Toastmasters can do. And one of the friends I had worked with at my current job, she reached out to me and she was like, hey, you know, we got this program going on for the youth, but since COVID happened, we are not able to engage with them. We're not able to meet with them. And we really want to keep them involved in the program. And it was with the Texas workforce of El Paso. So that was first and foremost, it was an opportunity that I didn't even think about or explore, but it was more because the friend that reached out, you know, we've worked so well together in the past that I did it more of not a favor, but because she asked, there was no question. I'm going to do this. Don't worry about paying me or nothing. But she didn't have that. She was like, no, we're definitely going to put money in your pocket, right? Um, so I created the Finding Your Voice platform, and originally it was tied with Toastmasters because I wanted Toastmasters to be the influence that guided them. But you know, there's a lot of structure that you, when you're involving another program, you have to be within a guideline that didn't it constrained me from really being the influencer and teacher and mentor that I am able to be. So after that first cohort that we had, it was amazing. We were working with Bel Air High School, some of the youth from that came out of not Big Brothers Big Sisters, but some came from the NAMI program, and there was a different mixture of youth in there that their audience at the end of it, the board, the Texas Workforce Board had joined on. The Bel Air principal was there, as well as the Texas workforce staff that was a part of it. So we had about 12 students. I think about 9 actually went through the program, which again, it's self-guided. So the fact that the 9 students that were there to include a brother and sister. One had a speech impediment that he was so worried about, but by the time he was done, he blew his story out the water. And another's his sister, who wanted to be a gamer. And typically, people who are gamers are very introverted. They don't. The whole time, she didn't want to turn on her camera or anything, and I never forced them to turn their cameras on. Right, like, this is you. As long as you show up, I don't care. But I told them it'll help you at the end of the day. So I said, like, look, give me one time you turn your camera on. And if you're going to do it on the last day you give your final speech. And so when they did that and she got on, first of all, nobody expected her to do it. But when she did, everyone was blown away that she, first of all, did it. But then the story she told about how I want to be a professional gamer and this is what I want to do, like, really blew everybody out the water. But there was one girl who talked about how she was going from house to house, and her dad was an abusive alcoholic, and his girlfriend, he would beat the dad would beat on the girlfriend, and the girlfriend would beat on her and her sibling. And this was going on for years and years. And then when the girlfriend got locked up and the dad got locked up, when he got out of jail, she thought that, okay, now that I'm living with my mom, my dad's going to come out and he's going to be better. But he just repeated that cycle with another girl who did the same thing. And she found out that she had to run away. She had to take care of herself. And she got her associate's degree by the time she graduated high school. She was already pursuing so much. And there wasn't a dry eye in the house. And when she had started off, the story that she had originally started to tell, she didn't want to say anything because she was embarrassed by it. But then by the end, everybody, to include her peers, as well as these adults, these members of our community, they were just blown away. They're like, I would have never been able to say something like that. One guy was like, I'm 50 years old and I can't even speak like that, right? I'm the board of directors and I can't even communicate the way you just did. And it
Right.
was a testament to the possibilities. If you give somebody just a little bit of your attention and a little bit of your time and a little bit of belief that they can do something, they can go a long way. So when I was 100% involved and engaged and dedicated to them, knowing that they have this ability to speak, to communicate, and how effective and how needed that is for every aspect of your life, whether it's in an interview, whether you want to just sometimes, like, people can't even order a pizza on the phone, right? They get so nervous, just everyday conversations. It really spoke to them. And to me, it was like a light bulb clicked in me, like, I can do this on my own. I could build something where I'm not constrained, where I'm not restricted to this program. And that's where Rise Enterprise really took off. That's where, Rise stands for Realize Importance, Surpass Expectations, became its own animal, its own beast. So the next cohort two, was 100% my program built, and it was amazing.
That yeah, I think that is so strong of a message and what you do. And I think it's cool that you allow your you allow them, your students, to pretty much open up when they're ready. You just give them the tools. So then for her to go ahead and give it a shot at the end, it was nothing but support. And I think that is awesome about that too. And um like I said, I can't stop giving praise um for what you're doing for the community and for people who are involved in that program, that you know are able to take that program. Because I just think of the future and I see how things are now, and there are a lot of people out there that are very scared or have some type of fear, like you said, maybe some type of embarrassment, maybe that they think, but um, they think if they get the tools like you're doing, they can inspire others with what they did and how they did it, and I think that's the biggest thing, that communication is so important.
Yeah,
It's so
it makes the
important.
world go round, man. If you don't know how to talk, how can you communicate, and how can you express yourself? It's It's a gift to be able to speak at a certain level, but to speak, period, is a gift everybody has.
Right, right. You know, and a little lighter on the subject there. Yeah, I mean, nowadays, and I'm not. I guess there's places and where I go, and I'm sure maybe other people have been in the same situation where you try to have a regular conversation just with someone to be friendly, and unfortunately, there's so many walls that are built up. These walls
Mhm.
are up there like, they kind of want to say, and you can see it in their face sometimes, like, what are you talking to me for? And it's like, I said, hey, how you doing? Have a great day. Or like, hey, nice shoes, or hey, you like the Cowboys? Oh man, I like them too, or whatever. Just something, just to smile at someone, and it's almost sometimes it can be where it's like, what why are you smiling at me, or why, like, that
Well,
communication is almost.
well, I also think that's a cultural thing too.
Yeah.
Because in America, it is very standoffish. People are, you know, if you talk to somebody, the immediate thing they're thinking is, "What do you want from me?" Right? Um, and it's hard for them to understand that there's a gift that they have. They have um, they have a lot of things that they want to become. There's a lot of things they want to engage in, but they choose not to because they're afraid. And this is also a product of how we're taught in school. You know what I mean? Like, they don't go through these type of things. They teach you these rudimentary things that really don't have anything to do after you graduate. Hell, I don't remember. I've never once like sat there and almost like, okay, well, let me try to find the hypotenuse of anything. Right? I've never, broke up my geometry and my protractor for half this stuff. But the one thing that I wish I had a lot more of was that public speaking, that critical thinking, that speaking class, and um these things that I wish were really more important now that I got older. But then at the same time, I'm an introvert by nature. But there came a certain point where I realized that being an introvert is a powerful thing once you start challenging that. So I make it a point to speak to people, whether they like it or not. But then I also try to challenge myself and see, can I break them to speak to me, right? Can I break that initial, like, what does he want from me? Like, what is he talking to me? Like, what do you want? And I'm gonna make you laugh. I'm gonna have a good time. I'm gonna give you something. But if I can't make you laugh, I'm gonna leave you in awe. And that's when my poetry, my storytelling, I've been doing that stuff for years. So speaking to people is not an issue. It still terrifies me. Don't get me wrong, because it's the fear of rejection. It's the fear of saying something wrong. It's not being comfortable, being vulnerable, right? It comes back to that. So that's why I tell people, like, be vulnerable in who you are. Be okay in who you are. If that doesn't work out, if you say something stupid, well, guess what? Now you know what not to say. But if you say nothing at all, you miss every opportunity. They always say, like, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. So, if wasn't confident as a speaker, I wouldn't have met my wife. If I wasn't a confident speaker, I wouldn't have been able to make the accomplishments. I mean, hey, if I wasn't a confident speaker, bro, I wouldn't have met you. Remember when we was living next to each other, man? You could have been just another neighbor living next to me, man. But
Yeah,
how many
yeah,
times did we sit on that wall and talk? You know what I'm
yeah,
saying?
yeah.
How many times? And it's because we had to find that groove. But the more we talked, the more we found out we had so much in common. And then here we are years later. What I like to refer to as that delayed gratification. That if we had just said, all right, man, well, good seeing you, neighbor, have a nice day, and once you had moved, bro, we would have never talked to each other ever again. But we made it a point to stay in communication, and we've done great things since then. So when it comes to other individuals and how you build that initial relationship, somebody has to take the first step. Somebody has to extend their hand first. Somebody has to be willing to present, step forward, and say, "Hi, my name is," and it's powerful when you're that person, because people will look at you and they'll sometimes be envious because they wish they were able to do that. But that's the power of being an influencer. Okay, it's not being a YouTube star. It's not being a TikTok, all that crap. It's about what you're doing in your everyday life. And if you're taking the opportunity to, again, how are you doing? That says a lot, and that can change a person's perspective. And you sprinkle a smile on that sucker, shoot, man, come on, bro. You know what I mean? You could break down walls. You know what I mean? The walls of Jericho will fall to a welcoming hand. So yeah, it's just about putting yourself out there every day and not being afraid to fail, because eventually failure leads to success.
What type of tip or anything would you say to help someone get over that fear? Because I struggle with fear every now and then, but like you said, you have to take that step.
Hmm.
And whether people on the outside look and they say, "Oh man, I would want to be that person," or "I want to do that," or "Hey, you're doing this and that," I'm still thinking, "Oh man," like he said, I'm like, "Okay, I want to do my best. I hope I don't mess up." But
Hmm.
now I'm at the point where I'm like, I can mess up because you said it before. You miss 100% of shots that you don't take, but you do learn from all the bricks that you shot up.
Hmm.
So
Yeah,
I'm like, well, you know what? I don't mind. Let me take that shot. Now I can adjust, or I could do it like you said. You know what not to do or what to do, and even some things, you know, you weren't supposed to do, but you made it. I mean, you don't like basketball. You say if they were behind the goal and they were jumping out of bounds and they shot over like to the other side, and it goes in. Like you were not supposed to do that, but you do it, and hey,
that
you
point
take your
still
shot.
counts.
It still counts, right? Yeah. So what anything that you say, is it just what someone thinks as far as the fear goes? Is it all
Right.
self-made?
You have to realize one thing, man. You're not for everybody, but you're for somebody. Okay? Not everybody's gonna like you, but somebody's gonna like you. If I My goal is, if I'm speaking to a crowd of 100 people, is to reach one. If I reach two people, I just doubled my my initial goal of reaching one person. If I reach three people, tripled. If I reach 100 people, duh, I'm shooting 1,000. You know what I mean? And,
Yeah.
and and that's it. You have to keep yourself humble, and you have to keep your goals realistic, so that's how you're supposed to realize your importance, what it is you're good at. And when you are able to realize that one thing you're good at, surpass it every time. And it becomes better with that engagement. And talking about shooting bricks, man, every time I tell people, you have to look at the perspective. If I shoot and I got a brick, that's one brick. If I keep shooting 10 bricks, that's 10 bricks. If I shoot 1,000 bricks, guess what? 1,000 bricks can still build a wall. Okay. And if I shoot 1,000,000 bricks, I just built myself a village. If I shoot a trillion bricks, I just built myself a kingdom. And eventually, I just built my kingdom. So when I start shooting and I'm making it, every single brick that I laid that built my kingdom is going to allow me to sit up top in my throne, being the best, because everybody's going to only see the kingdom I built. They're not going to see the bricks that I laid. And that's what it's about, man. You got to shoot
Yeah.
those bricks.
Yeah.
So when you do make it and you are successful, and people are wondering, like, how did this guy do it, man? How did he build all this stuff? Like, man, like I said, bro, you remember when, before my business was even built, man? You know what I'm saying? Like, we were sitting on our brick wall talking about it.
Yeah.
So here we are, successful in our own right, still building our kingdoms. We're still laying the foundations. And when people ask me, like, man, you've been doing this, you're so good at this, and da 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 da, like, I've been doing this for 20 years, and my business is only 3 years old. So there's a lot of hard work, the iceberg under the water, that people don't see, that went into coming here. So I tell people, shoot your shot, miss, but don't be afraid to do it again, because I will always be the person that when you fall down, the only time I look down on you is when I'm helping you back up. Okay. The only time that you're ever going to feel defeated is when you defeat yourself. You can't support anybody if you don't support yourself. And if I'm a competition speaker, right? Or a competitive speaker, which, yes, there is such a thing, right?
Yeah.
And people are like, man, you get up there and you're so good and you're winning all these competitions, and man, you must be the most confident people in the world. Man, people don't know I'm still shitting bricks, bro. Like my knees still tremble in my pants, man, and there's butterflies in my stomach, and I still feel sick. But at the end of the day, when they call my name to go on that stage, I'm like, well, I'm here. Let's jump into the fire. And if I get burned, well, I just built that, and it also speaks to the testament of my beliefs, man. I'm a big person on the particular phrase in the Bible, the armor of God. Okay. You have to build your defenses, you have to build your armor, and that comes from knowing what's going to hurt, where your weak points are, where do I need to work on myself, where do I need to come forward, and where do I need to have faith that I'll be better. And because of that, I have an armor that protects me from my own failings, and it protects me from people's judgments. That is one of the biggest things too that people hide from trying to be successful, is the judgment of others. And but at the same time, my dad always told me, and I also heard this from Gregory Douglas, that if people don't hate you, you ain't doing it right. If there ain't somebody out there looking down on you and envious and talking behind your back, you ain't doing something right. If everybody likes you, then you catering to everybody. So I
Right.
keep that in mind, that I walk this path by myself, and whoever chooses to join me, great. And I will join other people on their journey to help them, but eventually I'll end up by myself. And I will be comfortable being by myself, and I will be okay being by myself, because at the end of the day, it's all about me doing what I can to be a better me tomorrow.
Right, right. And I love that there. You know, I always tell people that I did really good today, but tomorrow I'll do better. And I don't
Hmm.
ever think I want to ever be perfect in one specific day, because then that means there's no room for improvement. And I know I can improve. I have to be able to improve every time. I don't want to come.
Completion before perfection.
Yes, yes. So, with that being said, I think a lot of people, well, I'll speak for myself. I think being consistent, um, being afraid what other people say at one point, overthinking things have been some past issues that would always come to mind.
Mm.
But like you said, you got to shoot that shot. And I've taken plenty, and I'm at the point now where it's like, I think what people get scared of is the first step, just trying to shoot that
Hmm.
shot or stepping on the court, you know? And, they'll sit on the sidelines just thinking, oh, I could do all this, but none of it comes to fruition because they don't push forward. How or what is something someone could try to do to help them get those little wins, you know, to celebrate? And I tell people to celebrate your the little wins. Whatever it is that you do, maybe write that down, and you could look at it and say, I accomplished that. Because I think we think too much about the bigger picture that we forget to congratulate or give ourselves a little bit of praise for the little things. So pushing someone or having someone to try to go and do their passion, how would you go about doing it? Like, what was the first step you took?
Getting over the fear, well, letting go of the fear. Um, you know, when we talk about being afraid, we have to understand that humans have evolved in the wrong way when it comes to that. Being afraid, the fear factor in animals, in nature, it is used to engage your fight or flight. It is not meant to be permanent. It's not meant to be longevity. It's supposed to be short for you to fight or flight, but at the end of the day, escape the danger that is making you afraid. Human beings have evolved to hold on to fear. And when we hold on to it, it influences everything else. It becomes an infection and a virus that starts to deteriorate everything else that it shouldn't. Okay. So if I'm afraid, first of all, that first initial unknown factor is what would terrify a person. I don't know what's going to happen. And a person will be so afraid of trying something that they will not only run away, but they will think about it. Oh my God, I should have done it. Now I have to live with the what ifs. And oh my, I have anxiety about that. And oh my God, I feel sick. And oh, I can't believe I didn't do it a week later. Oh, I can't believe I failed. And here I am. And man, but what it should have been was, okay, if you're going to step onto that court, you step onto it, you let all of your anxiety, worry, and then you get comfortable in the situation. Or once you leave, okay, whew, I don't have to do it. Let me get on with my day. That's how it should be. But people live in the moment so long that it becomes part of them. And now it's going to be affecting everything else, because now I didn't step on the court. Well, now if I go home, am I going to fail at being a provider? Well, if I go to work, am I going to fail at being an employee? Well, now that if I go to the grocery store, am I going to get, like it starts to filter everywhere else where it shouldn't. So that's what people have to do. And I, instead of getting over the fear, I went through the fear. I used it as a weapon. Okay. Because I told myself, whatever I fear, I'm going to fight. Whatever I fear, I'm not going to flee. I only have one direction, and that's forward. Right. And the only time I take a step back is to reflect, make sure I'm doing it good, and then move forward. All right. But I'm never taking a step back and retreat. I'm only taking a step back in reflection. And the one thing that really helped out was Dan Harmon. And are you familiar with who Dan Harmon is?
No, no, not currently.
Have you ever seen the show Rick and Morty?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
He's a
Speaking of
creative.
that, oh, last
He's a
two, mind blown.
right. It was amazing.
Yeah.
But he's the creator of Rick and Morty. Have you ever heard of the show Community?
Yeah.
He's one of the writers on Community. So he has what he calls the story circle, which is very simple. It's like 8 steps, right, where you're talking about um, how a protagonist moves through. Well, not so much the protagonist, but a person who the story is focused on, the journey they go through to get back to where they are. And one of those steps is the unknown. It's stepping into a situation you do not know. And once you step into the situation, so it starts off with your day one. Then it goes into a want, something that takes you away from your day one. And then you go into the unknown. And once you go into the unknown, you start to adapt to that situation. And once you adapt, you find success. But that success comes with a consequence. That consequence takes you back to rebirth. And then eventually you get back to your day one changed, right? And that's what happens with us. We go back to our day one being better or worse. In this case, when it comes to fear, people go to the unknown and they stay there. They choose not to adapt. They go backwards in their story. They go back to the want, and then they go back to their day one, and they stay comfortable. And when you stay comfortable, okay, that's where you're going to fail, because you're not going to find success being comfortable. We talk about the caterpillar butterfly type of deal. Being the caterpillar doesn't know they're going to be a butterfly. The only thing they know is that they must build a cocoon. There's something pulling them. There's something compelling them to build that cocoon. And that's the want. The unknown is, once they build that cocoon, they're in there and they're comfortable because they have shelter. And then they're successful in building it. But now there's a consequence, okay? They have to find a way to break out. And if they don't break out of that cocoon, because now they've grown too big, they've changed on the inside, and they have to break out of it. And if they don't find the strength to break out, they're going to die, okay? And they find a way to break out of this cocoon. They're butterfly, they've changed, they've metamorphosized, and now they went back to that same leaf that they started on, changed. And that's what people have to do. They have to learn that the want in life is going to take them to a place they don't know, but they have to follow through. They have to push themselves to be successful in that. They have to become this butterfly that's going to be, for all they know, they could be the most beautiful butterfly. They could be the most successful. But if they choose not to follow their path, if they choose not to build that cocoon, if they choose not to escape out of it, they're going to suffer and be comfortable. And eventually they're going to stay with the same place. So a lot of times when Dan talked about this story circle, I try to factor this in. And it's actually one of the key points in how I teach my Finding Your Voice program, is because it is a great, simple way to understand. You start off as a caterpillar and you must go back to being a butterfly.
Wow. That you know, this whole entire your when you were talking right now, I had to really hold myself back from just with excitement yelling because I wanted to make sure everybody heard what you said because oh man, you just have a way of with words and you say exactly and it hits so hard because it just has a lot of value behind that. And I love that you did that. I mean, I've always known like, oh yeah, well, a caterpillar and they do their thing, they turn into a butterfly, right? But I've never really put that in that perspective as far as going back to your day one on your leaf changed. And I think a lot of people do that in a sense with not necessarily do it, but they go back, but sometimes they're not changed. And then they try to put
No.
something on them. They put pressure. What is that? New Year's Day? Hey, have a New Year's resolution. I want to be back changed. And then it's just, they don't. They
Mm-hmm.
go to, they stay in the unknown and they don't break out. So slowly, yeah, fear
It,
and
your,
everything is
your,
taking over.
your day one is always today. There's never a reason to start tomorrow that you can start today. There's, unless it's a job that gives you a date, right? There's
Yeah.
no reason to ever wait, and I wish people would take more risk in life. I wish I saw more people failing so that there is a baseline to know what they can do better. They say a man of many talents, a man who wears many hats is a master of none. I don't believe in that. A person who wears many hats may be a master of some, but if I know enough to speak on something, I don't have to educate or be a professional in it. But if I know enough to hold in a conversation to give people insight into something, that's a win for me. And I scale my successes very small, because if I have one or two small successes, eventually, if I have 10, that's going to be one big success. It's like Lego pieces. If you have a bunch of small little Lego trophies and you have 100 of these, you can build one big trophy. And it's how you perceive that. So when people are thinking like, oh man, I didn't get this or I didn't get that, I'm like, okay, but what did you get though? What did you get out of this particular situation? Everything has something. There's a reward in every little thing. It's what you choose to accept as that reward is what you're going to do. And people typically want that instant gratification. And my mom, but they have the best sayings. My mom said only the devil rewards immediately. Everything else requires hard work. And if you're not willing to work for something that you're going to get right away, eventually you're going to pay for the repercussions. And if you work hard enough and that delayed gratification comes into play, that delayed gratification is the best success that you'll ever have. And there's been plenty of times where I have bit myself, I have shot myself in the foot, where I have been my own worst enemy, and I did not get the results I wanted because I wanted it right now. And the biggest way I could think about that is people knowing their worth. Like, what are you willing to say no to? What are you willing to say, this is where I belong and this is where I go? And people don't know their worth because we're not taught how to identify that. And typically we learn that years down the road, if at all. And for as long as I've been doing this, speaking and everything, like I said, I didn't find success until a couple of years ago. And even then, it's like for all my anime fans, I got to use this example. It's like Goku and his Kaioken. It's a multiplier. You gotta find your multiplier, right? And eventually you're gonna be strong enough to where you're gonna have this glimpse of becoming this Super Saiyan. And it came to the point where Goku and Gohan, they were constantly staying in Super Saiyan form because they had done it for so long that that's their baseline, right? So if
Right.
you look at that whole storyline, Goku doesn't need to sit there and have the Kaioken. He doesn't need his multiplier. He has built himself up so much that he can stay in his base form. And now the guy's a god, after all this time. So it's the same thing with us. We have to find our worth, what we're able to do, what multiplies us. Where's our Kaioken, and how are we able to maintain and sustain our Super Saiyan of success? And that's what I do for people. I believe in them enough that until they see themselves, I will see the Super Saiyan in you. I will build you up until you're able to hold on to it yourself, break through that comfortable vulnerability, and surpass that expectation that you set for yourself.
Let me tell you, I'm telling you, I every time I talk with you, man, I love it, and I can't say it enough. Thank you for being on this podcast
Oh man, brother,
because
I appreciate the support you, your family has provided me, the partnerships that we've had. When your wife made that shirt for me, that the high caterpillar rise butterfly in the semicolon,
oh
like
yeah, yeah, yeah,
like
definitely, that was awesome. Like with um with that we had that rise butterfly video you did,
mhm.
and we went out and wore those shirts, and at one point in time I saw people had tattoos on their hands or different places, and I didn't know what it was, and I never really thought to look into it. But once you brought that up, I really took a grasp for it, and I actually have you explain a little bit about that semicolon.
So the semicolon is the sign for surviving suicide. Um, uh, you know, my daughter, but when she was 12, she attempted to take her life in school, and that was probably one of the hardest days of my life, my friend. And from that, that day, I realized that life paused for me that day, man. The world stood still. And it wasn't until I saw her laying in that hospital bed, bro, with her, with the the blood capillaries bursted in her face from her struggling to breathe, from trying to hang herself in the bathroom. And I mean, it was powerful. And so when I found out that the semicolon stood for taking a pause, that life continues, but you have to take that moment for yourself. I mean, it was powerful in so many more ways. And it just takes me back to the caterpillar, man. Like, the cocoons we build for ourselves sometimes can be to our detriment. And breaking out is a testament that we are able to get past our own obstacles. And when she came home, it made me just appreciate life in a different way that I never even thought I didn't see. It opened up a whole perspective that just, it was so rich in its reality, that like that, man, it could be all over. So you have to take that pause. You have to take that step back sometimes and reflect. And you have to realign and readjust, and understand that how we impact and support people means so much more. And that's where the realized importance comes into play, because I had to understand why she thought that she wasn't wanted in this world at 12 years old. And the whole history behind that, you know what I mean? It's a whole different thing. And It's a reality that we all live in, and that's why it really pushed me to work with at-risk youth and individuals who don't necessarily have a stable home environment, to show them that people believe in you and you can believe in yourself. You have that ability. You have to just take a pause and understand who you are and tell your story. Tell it to the world, so that when you aren't able to support yourself, you've put it out there that you're able to ask for help. One, you have a voice that you're able to reach out and say, please support me, help me. I need someone. Because the individuals who do commit suicide, or who don't come back, or who are successful in their attempt, felt that they didn't have a voice, and they felt that they didn't have anybody to reach out to. And I refuse to do nothing when it comes to that, because these are our leaders, these are our tomorrow, these are the individuals who will dictate our world tomorrow. And if they don't have the strength and down to believe in themselves, why are we waiting until they're adults and they're already beaten down and they're going through the struggles of life to find that they can do better? So that semicolon meant so much more than just taking a pause. It's to take a moment to reflect. And I want everyone to understand that I believe in them. I will be there to support you, and I will help you keep your self talk strong.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Definitely. You know, I think that's everybody faces, everybody, has, their story in their life that they're going through. And, just talking with you about that, it really helps just to try to remember that when you go about your day, other people are going through things. You know, it's not necessarily just about us. Um, and that communication is key, because I know there's times and there's where a conversation should be had, but the opportunity goes by and nothing's said. With nothing being said, you never know what's happening, or even like you said, they people feel like they don't have a voice. I know at one point in time, I think people were talking about anxiety and
Mm-hmm.
mental illnesses and different things going on, and I really didn't understand it until I started having it. Hearing different things, and I've heard people say, "Well, just." I've heard people say, "Give me a second here." Yeah, I've heard people say, "What are you so anxious about? Why can't you just don't be anxious? Don't be excited." But sometimes people don't understand that it's not a choice. It's just something that's going on. That you really. I mean, you could try to help control it or do things to help it, but sometimes when it hits, it hits.
Mm-hmm.
And I think communication, everything you're doing, is it like you said, you're doing something about it. And that vulnerability that you're giving right now, I hope someone really takes that and sees that they're not alone. And everything we talked about now, about having the tools, taking that first step to do what you need to do, to take that shot. And then if you brick it, it's okay. You have those bricks to make that empire.
Mm-hmm.
Because I hope they see this. And just like we said too, they're hearing and listening. They're listening and watching you and seeing what a confident man you are, how well you speak, as well as being vulnerable. Everything that
Hey,
you said through the whole podcast, you've exemplified. You are the epitome of everything you just talked about, which is awesome because it's so authentic. I see it. I see you. You're just. I at times always think, man, I wish I could talk like this guy. I wish I had the words. I wish my vocabulary was up there. I wish I could, I was doing this and this, and I try to better myself. But at the same token, I have to do it. I have to put in the work. But you can get there, and you are a story of that, as well as empowering the youth and kids and everybody that you teach, whether it's adults to children, that I'm so glad that you're doing that just because I know that the future with whoever you've touched as far as learning or teaching, that they'll be able to communicate to a point that everybody can grasp and appreciate and be
yeah.
inspired by.
Everybody has their role, man. Everybody has to fit in. You know, not everybody can be Jordan. Not everybody can be Pippen. You know, Jordan needed his Rodman, right? You know, was Rodman the highest scorer? No, but he got those rebounds. He was a supporting member. Was everything always about, Serena Williams started with her sister and she just happened to surpass, but doesn't mean her sister doesn't support her. No. Look at Eddie Murphy and Charlie Murphy. Rest in peace, Charlie Murphy. There, right there, Charlie Murphy always supported Eddie. You know, he wasn't out for the limelight of himself. He was there to support his brother with love and support. And he just happened, to be, he's a funny dude himself, but he found his success a lot later after Eddie did, right? But he still was there to support. So a lot of times too, your passion, your success, even with you, Adrian, like a lot of times, bro, like that video that I did, that we did, the high caterpillar rise butterfly, when we did that, bro, like my corporation, my work played that, you know, thousands of people saw that. When we recorded my very first one, the state of uncertainty, man. I mean, bro, it's the people behind the camera that are just as important as the people who stand in front of it. Because I can be as confident and boisterous as I want all day, but if there's not someone there to record it for me and take some of the work off my plate and do it a lot better, so I'm not exhausted in doing all the work and missing something to the point where I don't think it's perfect. And how many times have we personally done that? Oh man, it's not ready to come out yet. But then it
Yeah.
was the other one. You would tell me, Kenny, what are you talking about? We release it. Hey, Adrian, dog, doesn't matter. Let's go forward. It takes,
Yeah.
you have to just find where you're comfortable at, and not everybody is comfortable speaking, but it doesn't mean you can't be successful to that speaker. For that speaker, you can find success in helping the person who's willing to be the front man by being successful behind the scenes to ensure that everything's running smoothly. You know, every actress needs a great director. Every actor needs a great supporting cast. Every comedian needs a good sound guy. Every musician needs a great stage. And there are people that have to do that. So just keep in mind that, for those who are listening to this, if you're not that person that wants to stand in the spotlight, then run the spotlight. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
be the person that shows up to turn it on. Because if the stage isn't lit, I don't care who you are, you ain't going to be seen, So it's all about finding your place. Everybody has one. I just choose to be the person that takes my fear and let that be my motivator. And I will. Oh, I have something that I always tell myself. This is my motto. It's I'm thankful for the person I was yesterday, for he allowed me to be the person I am today, and the person I am today would allow me to become the person I want to tomorrow. And I have to keep that on and keep that on, and I will pass it on to the next person, so that when we talk about our self-talk strong, and realizing our importance, surpassing expectations, it's all about being vulnerable, being comfortable, and getting out of the unknown and reaching that success. So when you come back to your day one, you're changed for the better.
That is, yeah, I love that. So, Kenny, let me ask you,
So man.
what do you have going on? What type of events, or do you have anything going on? Classes or anything where people can look you up and find you?
Oh, for sure, man. You can go to riseenterprise.org and look me up there. You can message me directly. You can also participate in any of my workshops. That right now, what I have coming up this week is I'm teaching a public speaking class for the homeschool co-op, for kids, to help them find their voice, become a little bit better. But it's also an opportunity to, like I said, like, teach the things that our schools aren't teaching, so that they have these tools, so when they are able to go into the world as adults or into the workforce, they're doing it with a little bit more confidence than trying to find it out themselves. And I'm also doing a podcast right now that kind of coincides with the homeschooling for the parents, on the parents end, so they can be a little bit more aware of how their children might come up with these stories that are super impactful. And I want the parents to be able to support them at home between these school times, because I'm only teaching one class for 1 hour each week. And I think it's just going to be till December. So my original classes, it's still a 12 session class. It's just extended over 3 months, where I usually do 12 sessions in 1 month, but I also do one-on-one coaching for youth, as well as adults. The program that I have, the Finding Your Voice, works for all ages. I just typically am focused right now on youth, because that's the availability that's there. And then the few clients that I do have on the sides, they're excelling at a great rate. So if you're interested in becoming a part of that stuff, man, riseenterprise.org is where it's at. And you reach out to me, and definitely we can work something out. You can also find me on Thumbtack, as well as in platforms such as this.
Definitely, definitely. Well, Kenny, I appreciate you definitely for being on. I will be putting up the information there, that if anybody is interested in any of the services Kenny has to offer, I definitely recommend that you take a look, have a listen. He has the podcast that definitely is well worth the listen.
Oh yeah,
So
guidelines to get off the sideline. So you can look it up on it's on many different platforms: Spotify, um, Apple Music, so much more. Just look at the Guidelines podcast, the sidelines, and go from there. And then you can also reach out to me at kgranville@riseenterprise.org.
definitely, I appreciate it. Well, I like I said, thank you so much. I'll put all the links up for everybody to take a look and check out Kenny Granville. And man, it was a pleasure. Thank you so much.
And I appreciate you, brother. Thank you.
All right, so y'all heard it, Kenny Granville. Man, it's so awesome to talk with that guy. He is definitely in another league. He's just in another league, and I strongly believe that the programs that he have will definitely benefit anybody and everybody out there. I'm thinking of getting into it too, because I mean, this whole podcast here, this is my first. I'm gonna say it is the first of this type of session, and you're seeing me right now shoot my shots. There's some bricks throughout, but I have a great teammate with Kenny, where he goes with it, and he's been able to help. So you take your shots, shoot those shots. If you brick, hey, you'll learn from them. You'll make adjustments. But if you don't ever take those shots, you'll never make a shot. But definitely, I appreciate y'all. Thank you so much. Enjoy your day, and we'll see you next time.